Hey, folks, just a friendly reminder that all shows on the Madness Comic Network are produced by their individual hosts and in no way reflect the opinions of the network as a whole. The statements in the following broadcast are not necessarily the opinions of the Madness Comic Network, its staff, sponsors, or contributors. This show is rated TVMA, as are all of them and all those other letters. Viewer discretion is highly advised, and, just do what Doc says. Read that again. Peace, everybody.
The future. The final frontier. It has never been so uncertain as now. AI, VR, haptic wear, nanotechnology, mass destruction with a remote click. Now we are finally seeing the true potential and dangers of an ever-connected and overly policed hyper-technological world. Have we finally become the architect of our own demise? Is there still hope? Welcome to the future. Welcome to Punk Droid.
Hey, everybody, Dirk Manning here, the writer and creator of numerous comic books and graphic novels, including Nightmare World, Tales of Mystery, Brave But Not Dead, all kinds of stuff. And I am super excited for you because you are getting to watch right now, right this moment, out of all the things we're really going to be doing, you're getting to enjoy and revel in the Madness Comic Network. And that is awesome. Thank you for being here.
Howdy, howdy. We are live, folks. And welcome to the Comic Artist Hour. I am Les Garner, 30-year veteran of comics, animation, and all kinds of crazy crap. So, and joining me here today is my buddy Charles Moisant.
Hi.
publisher of a variety of different comics, writer, and publisher of comics and games. So
Yes.
we're doing a number of things together.
Yes.
But right now it is time for the Comic Artist Hour, and this will be I guess this is episode 2, first episode. I almost said issue. First episode was sort of a bit of a dry run. So this time around, we're going to be going more towards, I guess, what I'm thinking of as a regular sort of theme for the show.
Mm-hmm.
That is an ongoing analysis of what makes comics great and the art, how that art's done, why certain art works, why certain people are considered greats. And, we'll be analyzing a lot of this stuff. Some shows will end up doing some live sketching and things like that. We're planning on doing some guests. There's a whole variety of things that we're going to be doing. So, but for today, I've pulled together a handful of pages from old John Buscema work and mostly Conan, although I think I've got a piece with Mephisto from Marvel in it. And so what we were going to get into is mostly talking about, composition and how the page is laid out, how that plays into, the quality of the page, how successful it is, all that kind of stuff. So I'm going to kick things off. Like I said, I've got these things loaded up here. So this first page is from an older Conan. I'm going to say this is probably late 60s, early 70s. Excuse me. And I'm looking at this right now, thinking about, what makes this page work? What is strong about this page? And I don't want to be hypercritical, especially of certain, of older artists who are so foundational to what we do. For myself, this type of layout that he's got going here is it's not one that, let me kill that stuff. It's like I personally was never a big fan of a 3-tiered layout. So if I'm going here, here, and here, I was never a big fan of that. And there's a principle that I'll get into as to why. So most of the time when laying out a comic book page, there's a principle. I call it the Z principle. So, and of course it's going to be inverted if you're looking at manga. And that's really the only difference in this principle. But when you're reading from left to right, you need that page to consistently fall in a Z-shaped pattern with the artwork. Now, there's lots of different ways that you can get into that. And when I talk about composition, that's going to be a lot of what I'm gearing towards, is how we get your eye to go from up here across to some center of interest, down to whatever is over here, and off the page. Because you want to lead the eye across, down, and over so that you are thinking, or so that without thinking, rather, you're able to know that your viewer is going to want to turn that page. So, Charles, you see anything on this page that you would have done differently, or anything you would offer a critique to? And I know this is John Buscema, so I'm probably going to rankle some feathers with it, but
no. The one thing that I'm analyzing from a different point of view is the writing, and also doing a reverse pathology of how the script may have been written. But one of the rules that they seem to adhere to is the 25 word count panels. If it's a normal 6-panel book, you should not have more than 25 words per panel. For example, panel 1, 21 words. Panel 2, which is a long panel, is 15 words. Panel 3, 15 words. Panel 4, 3 words. Panel 5, 7 words, so on and so forth. And that's another thing that one has to also pay attention is the composition of the characters and figures. For example, panel 1, you have room at the top, which is more than enough room for their speaking lines. Had you changed the angle or used more close-ups, you'd be interrupting the art. For example, let's say that you had close-ups similar to panel 4, Conan tossing the ring or the coin or whatever that is. If there wasn't any room, you could really disrupt the art. So that's just one thing that I tend to pay attention to when it comes to writing comics and even trying to create descriptive breakdowns for the potential artists.
Nice. Yeah, that is definitely something for people to think about. Now, a lot of that is plays into the what is kind of an age-old debate in comics of the Marvel style versus the DC style of writing.
Mm-hmm.
And I, as an artist, I really like to work from the Marvel style.
Mm-hmm.
But that's, because I'm also a writer.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, is like not every artist is a good writer. And not every writer has a good artistic eye or a good sense of the craft of the art that goes in. That's one of the things that makes comics so unique and weird sometimes and difficult, is that as an art form, if you have the typical comics, going to be made by a creative team, writer, penciler, inker, letterer, colorist, so on. And that team has to collaborate properly. The first point of contact in that collaboration is between the writer and the artist, or the penciler typically. So, the writer, I've looked at scripts from people before where it'll say page 1, panel 1, and I'm thinking that panel 1 is basically a book from Tolstoy. And I'm like, you realize there's no room here for art because of how many words are in this. So, that's no bueno. That's not cool.
Yeah.
So, and that's kind of a thing that I would point out. That's actually a good thing to think about here. A good note to writers who might be watching this is, get in mind a general word count that you can allow for. And it's just a rule of thumb, obviously. And then the other thing that I would really, really suggest writers pay a lot, well, writers and artists both pay a ton of attention to, is the principle of show, don't tell.
Correct.
Because the more that you can show in the visual medium, the less you have to say with words. And the less you have to say with words, the more space you are able to allocate in the case that words are actually needed for something. So, there's a process, I think, that you can go through of whittling down and prioritizing the content that's going to go on the page. So, it's actually a great point that Charles brought up, and that's a very important thing that I'll probably come back to. I'd say we'll come back to that as we go through these other pages, because I don't know if we'll get through all of these pages I've got loaded up, but we'll be looking through a few more of them. So
to jump in real quick, I also sent, if you want to show that a little later, one of the pieces we're working on, and we've done that the Marvel style, where I gave a overall arc of the story. And what you've done with the layout is allow for a lot more room for text and exposition, because it's an origin story and building up, and it's narration heavy. And I found it fascinating that you were very conscious of that fact with the current story that we're working on with one of the pieces. So it's interesting. When a writer, when a writer writes the DC way, where it's very strict, panel 1, ABC, panel 2, that is also very good for the artists who are creative technically, but not creative imaginatively.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is there was artists I worked on with where they could not think of anything. But if you told them what to do, amazing technical pieces would come out. And that also, you have to be mindful of that. And as a publisher, I try to put together writer-artist teams, and I work to keep them together so they develop synergy and understanding, and beautiful work can come out. For example, on the piece you showed, who is the writer?
I am not sure. I really was looking only for John Buscema's work, and I can't recall who it is. Being that it's old Conan, it very well might have been Roy Thomas.
Right. So if it was Roy Thomas, I'd be with the relationship. But I'll back up from that. And the thing also, which I find fascinating too, is this older work. Everything is done by hand. There is no computers involved, no digital work involved. If any machines were involved, it would be Xeroxing at best.
Yeah. Yeah, that's definitely a huge difference. I mean, that's kind of the world that I think it's a world you and I both came up in. I mean, for me, that world was on its way out when I first started in comics. I got my first work in comics back in early '93.
That's so awesome.
So, awesome. Actually, it was late '93.
Oh,
and
just to interrupt, one of the participants asked if we could zoom in on individual panels temporarily as you go through this.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Which that's something I was about to do, because I want to talk about the layers of composition in a page. So, like this page, that's one of the things that makes a comic book page such a unique thing in the world of art. Is most pieces of artwork, you have typically a square or rectangle, you have some shape and an image, and that's that. It is the image is the image is the image. With a painting, it's that way. You can talk about sculpture and things like that as having more to it because of the way that you can travel around it, see it from different angles, but it's still a single subject. Whereas a comic book page, by its nature, unless it's a splash page, a comic book page, sequential art, by its nature, is multiple images displayed together. And those images need to flow from one to the other. And just as I was saying with the Z phenomenon that happens in reading a page, well, inside a panel, this is probably going to pixelate a little bit, but that's okay. Inside a panel, if we have, like here, you can see the lettering for this just plays right across the top. So that allows this to stay pretty simple. But sometimes you'll end up having something like this panel. So this lettering, if we're looking only at this panel, it starts here, we come across and then down, and then something has to pull us back out through. And if we look, we know where we begin to read is going to be a contact point for the eye. Okay. Then as we read across, this is repeated. This direction is repeated with the arms, and then the thrust of her body helps lead us down to the next point of interest, being the lettering right there. Then we have a foreground element here that helps pull us out, and another element right here that pulls us right on through. So that right there is a masterfully created panel that interacts with its writing incredibly well. And the letterer has chosen, now if you think about this, the letterer on this could have chosen to put this entire block of text over here.
Yep.
And I would argue that they could have done that to, some success in the storytelling of it, but I haven't read this particular. I don't recognize this particular story, but I would lay odds that this door right here, this door with a curtain, is probably important to the story to come, if not on this page, in the next pages. So that's something that letterer has, I would bet, has taken into consideration so that they don't cover up something that they know needs to be seen, so that it's dropping a visual cue for things to come. That's a lot of times folks will read comics, and we get the stories, we follow it through and all that, but to stop and really think about how much is being told to you from image to image it's wild how much a good artistic team will go through. It's kind of like when you're watching a film and there's some background detail that goes by in a shot while a couple of people are talking that has nothing to do with that exact moment, but you want that thing lodged in the subconscious of the person seeing it, so that in the next cut or the next scene or later on, it's called back to. And that creates, this continuity of storytelling across the medium, and of course, they do it in film all the time. And I would argue that quite a few things that are done in film came from comics.
Real quick, zoom out, please. Now, this is something quite interesting that you know of. And the artist, even though there's a lot of noodling and a quote, a lot of detail, he also pulled back when it was unnecessary. For example, the first shot with the two men, Conan in the background, you see the background of the establishment, which establishes they're inside, they're in a location. And and then the next one is the lady. They made the background dark to emphasize her, so she pops more. Then they gave her a background to really give you the feeling of the tight clothes in space, which is practically over Conan's shoulder, or behind him. And the next two panels.
Oh, and there's also the wood element right here of the beam,
right?
And then the way the beam down here sits in there.
Correct.
These things are.
But there's no background.
Stating the background.
But there's no background here because now it's unimportant. It can save time, and it would actually clutter the page and slow down the reading.
Yeah. So, and then something else. Of course, this is what I call a 3-tier page, where we basically have three rows of panels, and so here his general layout is running like that. It's really a pair of Z's, two Z's stacked together. And with that, one of the things that I noticed looking into this is, you see how it starts here. We've got this guy, and then his gaze, the next major shape is going to be his head. So you're brought into there. Then faces attract the eye. So boom, 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 1, 2, 3. Then the next face that your eye notices, whether you realize it or not, is most likely that one.
Yeah.
And then look at the direction she's looking in. Her eye line shoots right across to where Bashima wants you to go next.
Yep.
Not down here, right across to there. He's using, whether he consciously did that or not.
Yes.
He may have just done it instinctually, but he is using her eye line to create that instinctual directional across to the next piece of content he wants you to latch onto. So, and then from there, we have, like we said earlier, we've got the way these things flow.
Yeah.
Leads us to the next panel. Then if you look at the overall darkness of this panel, he's using the light and dark of these to guide you from face to face. And again, the angle of her face is turned this way and his is over here. So, you see these things. It's just masterful.
Yeah.
It's like all of these little nuances that it's like in special effects. If the special effects in a film, if you go, oh, there's the special effects, then they were done poorly.
Now, real quick, if you notice with Conan, sorry for jumping in. If you look at Conan and the way everything else is staged, with him being in the center, he's also aware of everything around him, and almost even he's almost breaking the fourth wall, almost looking like, wait, is there something I'm not aware of? And the lady next to him, of course, is oblivious and is not fully paying attention to Conan. She brings you back into the book, where Conan almost breaks the fourth wall. And I thought that was quite interesting to give you the strength of Conan's presence. I am aware of it all.
Oh,
but it's subconscious.
That panel in the center here, also with this kind of layout, reinforces he is the center of the story.
Yes.
I mean, quite literally, he is the center of the story.
Yep.
So, and that's an interesting thing to note as you're looking at the page. So, and then there's also the added, like, just in case, almost as if guiding you,
right?
There's this movement right here. So just in case your eye is tempted to go on down here, it's like, no, here's this and this, and all of these things are leading you over there. So, and then, this is something I've noticed John Buscema did a lot.
Yeah.
He uses the eye lines to guide the viewer frequently. Boom, boom, boom.
Yes.
You can see, and then where do we go here? We go from here to here, reinforcing the direction she's looking in, but then there's two characters here who are both looking over here. So those eye lines are telling you how to read the page, whether you realize it or not. And it's just such an instinctual thing about how we see and we recognize, faces and people and so on. That's a really interesting thing to note in there. And if you also see another thing to consider, like I said earlier, I think was the light and darks, the shadows of the page. So, like, I would just about bet that if we
can you play with the game?
We pumped,
yes,
if we pumped that, you could squeeze that, and you can still see how the light from here to here across. You can still analyze that and see how those things help you travel across the page. So it's really wild sometimes to do that deep of a breakdown on a page. Let's go on to another one.
Mathematics behind it. Oh yes, look at that.
So here we've got a classic Buscema splash page, and it's funny. Like, as an artist, I'm actually not that fond of splash pages because I think they're overused in modern comics. They got really overused in the 90s. And as much as I love my 90s comics and stuff like from the Image guys, I think that they really overused the large splash pages.
Would you say splash page saves time?
Yeah, I think quite often a splash page can be a really opportune place for an artist who's looking to do some wanking.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's what it turns into a lot of times. Now, this is not one of those. This is Buscema, and Buscema's no wanker. So, here, I mean, just put it out there like it is. So, with this, we can look at a number of different factors here in the composition of this page, which is kind of my focus right now. Obviously, the lettering's here, but if we took that lettering away,
Yeah.
This cloth up here creates a shape that has, you know, these angles of thrust that lead us down to an element here, boom, boom, that leads us to here.
Yeah.
And obviously he's looking, you know, he's looking here. Sorry, I didn't mean to draw that straight to the boobies, but that's probably what he's looking at.
Yeah.
And, you know, and here we have all eyes. These eyes and these eyes, all these eyes are on her. Everyone is definitely looking at the girl dancing, except for this numbnut. I don't know what his deal is. Yeah, he's just he's just busy blowing on his horn, and we'll just leave that for what it is.
We got about 7 and you're not going to say any of them. You don't want this show to be banned in Bengal.
All right, I need to check and see if my
your camera's.
I think I lost my. Yeah, I lost my camera connection for a second.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna take just a second here to kill that and reopen my.
I also
my
think it's
camera
about
app.
40 words for the single panel.
Let's see here. That is not cool.
Yeah.
My audio's still coming through, right?
Oh yeah. By the way, you know what music is being played?
No. Oh Lord.
Yeah, you're back.
All right. Okay, cool. Yeah, I had to reinitialize my camera hub. So let's hop back over here.
Yes.
And
Now your camera's dead again.
so there's if my camera die again on me.
He keeps going to your phone. I dropped the phone.
That is unfortunate.
I'm allergic to the non-phone or to the.
Oh, actually, I can't do that. So let's just do that. There we go. So now we'll just go on with the voices. But oh my God, that's funny. So you can still hear me, okay? Right?
Yeah. Perfect.
All right. Good deal.
Yeah, perfect. I love how.
All right. I'm not a fan of that. How do not understand why my camera disconnected. God damn it!
I'll be right back.
All right. Let's kill that. There we go. I wonder if that overlay is what's causing that. Well, while he has stepped away for a moment, come back over here and take a look at what's going on in this. So if we look at different elements here, we can see this guy right up here. I think I probably would have chosen something a little different there, because I feel like that if it weren't for the lettering, this would detract from what pulls us into the rest of the page. But because of the lettering, we're reading, and then we're in. And then the letterer has really done a good job of using all this space. I think this shows that Buscema knew, Buscema is thinking about the space left for the lettering. And he left, if you notice, if you were to remove these lettering bubbles, that there's really not a whole lot going on in that area. So that really makes sense for that to be a place for lettering, and a place where he's not having to be super concerned about the composition that much, although there is the thrust of this cloth. that really helps drag our eye into this main focal area here. And then her eye line is traveling back over to this guy, and then the overall thrust created right here leads us back out. And then I would just note that this little area here at the bottom, this little bit of hatching and detail here, creates a little spot of darkness that helps reinforce the eye going across to that corner where it's going to turn the page. So it's kind of it's a wild page to analyze like that, because when you look at it, also if you think about the whole Charles, refresh my brain, what is that called? I always think of it as the spiral or the Fibonacci sequence.
Yes. It's the golden ratio, where you have the spiral of a conch shell.
Yeah.
And going from, it's actually going from the guys behind in the opposite direction, where it's not clockwise, it's actually counterclockwise from the dudes. Yeah.
Well, it's interesting that it really works out well. It works out both ways.
Yeah, but start from the dudes in the back. Start from the dudes in the back.
Was that?
Yeah. Left arm, the two guys who look like, no, not that back, the other back. Start on your right side, go across, downward, then up. Yeah.
Like that?
Right. All of them work. All of them.
It's interesting to me that you can think about that the golden ratio, and you can apply that. Like I'm looking at this and I see how it applies in like 5 different directions.
Yeah,
it's a wild thing to.
There's a book
What's
out there. There's a book out there that I highly recommend, and I've used when I've taught people. It's called Framed Perspective. You could look at, you could look. I forgot the name of the writer. I can look it up and then post it to you. But that literally teaches the mathematics of how to understand it. Once you understand innately the mathematics on a almost subconscious level of the geometry, then this type of layout will start to come more and more naturally. And it's interesting how you have a Western style of mathematics as compared to the Eastern style. Yes, it would be a full page. It's a full page splash. So that would be, original art would be 11 by 17 or even bigger. Some of the artists work at a larger scale, and then be reduced to, at the time, those books 7 inches by 10 and a quarter. Now they're 10 and a quarter by 6.125.
Let's move on to another page here. This is a good example of just straight up panel to panel storytelling. If we're looking at the composition, I love the panel break here.
Yeah.
The panel break. So if we follow, again, we're starting from here. We've got a line that thrusts up, and then this character's spine thrusts us this way. Then that sword catches us and brings us down. I mean, we're definitely going to take a look at his face on the way through, but that sword is going to drag us on down. Now, here's where, to me, and again, I know I'm critiquing John Buscema here, I probably would have had that arm reach over here and the sword come up, breaking out of this panel and breaking into this panel, so that it helped reinforce going down to the next one. Because as I look at this, my eye naturally wants to go down here, but he did include this motion line and the sword right there that helps pick you back up and swing you around. And this is another example of that 3-tier layout that he used to do a lot back then. It was very common in comics back then. So that's I would say that when people are doing a 3-tier layout, they're reaching back into the late 60s, early 70s. So Now here, the composition almost breaks down, but the letterer comes through and kind of saves the day by adding this element here that forces you to read across far enough that you catch this face and understand that everything's here.
Oh.
So, this right here, I would say of the pages. Now this is all relative, okay? Because in my mind, there's no such thing as a weak John Buscema page. But of the pages we've looked at so far, this one to me is probably the roughest in the layout department, and the composition on this page is the shakiest. You can also tell, I would lay dimes to dollars that when Buscema drew this page, he was under a wild deadline crunch. Because if we look back here, you see how much he put into these backgrounds. And then if we look here, obviously there's a ton going on. But on this page, there's like just enough to give us some context. Really, at just 2 points.
I'll jump in on this one. From what I've experienced as a publisher, this is heavy action. Because it's heavy action, it's actually logical to pull back on backgrounds and have more of the strong thrusting, moving. And what I really enjoy about the second panel is the sword and Conan's hand break out of the frame to give you a sense that he is attacking with such brutal force, not even the frame can contain him. Then you have the
I can definitely see that.
Right.
And that's totally a valid point when it comes to the big action pages like that. It's very common. I will say for myself as an artist, I don't go that route very often.
Yeah,
it's most of the time I want backgrounds. I want backgrounds everywhere. I as an artist, I tend to try and treat my backgrounds almost as much of a character as the characters.
Right.
And now sometimes it puts me in a pickle when it comes to some choices that I'll make.
Yeah.
But I totally understand, and I think most of us as artists, if you're doing this kind of art, you probably do enjoy drawing with detail and putting all those little things in there, which is, that's kind of why I look at a page like this from someone as great as John Buscema.
Oh yeah.
And it's still an excellent page. To me, this reads to me like proof that a great like Buscema will still do something excellent even under what I imagine were probably some pretty terrible conditions. So I can't imagine that this page was not done under an insane deadline crunch. Now this guy right here, oh my Lord, I love this. I love this page. This is a great example of a time when, he's got an opportunity to just go ham on his details, but then also his composition too. Because here there's obviously all of this weight. Okay.
Yes.
And then the light to shadow reinforces it. If he had, he could have tried doing like little ticks and hatching and stuff instead of the solid shape shadow like that. But by doing that solid shadow, it really reinforces the weight of what's going on here. And then, of course, this guy. Now, I wonder what happened to the hand right there. Because not seeing this down here, it looks like the character is missing the hand.
Yeah, it's missing the hand.
Yeah. So that's kind of interesting.
Maybe instead of going ham, he went steak burger.
So here is something that I absolutely love. If we look at this area right here.
Yeah.
Okay. And let's draw some lines that way. And then look at this over here, I'll draw these lines the other way. We see these opposing planes, and the depth in this is created here. He's almost done that for us. Like we can see these different planes of like if I choose a different color and go in here and I highlight these, so we can really get a feel for it. These different planes created by the different elements are just pulling us into and out of the image. You can really delineate all that stuff really strongly. So he's created all this depth by these different, like there's a big framing plane. Here's another big framing plane. So those things all frame up this guy right here in the center. And the same sort of thing is going on up here. We've got
Great
all of that is framing. What's that?
Great use of negative space.
Yeah.
And
then
what's interesting with that weird cave over there, when you first drew it, it was like a demonic Pac-Man rushing in. But now when I look at it, it looks like a weird insect eye that's been bleeding or cut. And it, see, that's how in my mind will like shift and move. And then, but I realize it's a cave. But if you separate it out, it almost looks like an insect head.
Oh God, I can see it now, man.
Right.
That's really wild.
Yeah.
Right
But whatever you do, do not draw knees on the demon figure. I mean, don't draw horns on the demon figure on his knees. No, now he has horn knees.
Oh my God, I can't believe I fell for that. Terrible.
Okay, let's get back to real stuff.
Oh my God. So
whoops,
awful. You can see right through here.
Yeah.
See how he's chosen all of this stuff here to do in deep shadows, right?
Right.
This is all framing. Like this page is probably one of the better examples I've seen in a hot minute of using the background elements and laying out those planes of depth and the way they intersect with each other. Like this one goes here, this one goes here. These were here. You could argue just follow that one, but where it all ends up is you've got these giant shapes that are framing for this guy.
Their eyes,
and obviously, like there's no mistaking that this guy is the center. Then the way that this little fella right here is just, whoop, he's so tiny.
Yes. But it's less.
Yeah.
Could you imagine a word balloon over the monster's left shoulder where that bubbling fire is, and it's saying, "Next time, bring me spam and eggs."
Good grief. So now something else to take note of here. This is the monster's tail, and amidst all this rock and everything, that tail could get lost. But one of the choices is made here that allows that tail to not get lost is these strokes that do the shading on that are a little different. See how there's different kind of cross hatching and different techniques that they've intentionally. Now I'm not sure if Bashima inked this himself or he had somebody else inking this, but whoever inked this. What's that?
Take a look at the lower.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it could be Bob.
I am not sure.
For those using their iPhones. Yeah, can you zoom in on individual panels for a moment for the iPhone people?
Oh yeah.
There we go. Thank you, Kerry.
So that panel, I mean, that's damn near a splash page.
Oh yeah.
But it's a great. There's so many different things. Is a great example of. I mean, you have the I love these. I use this kind of stuff in my own work all the time, is these kind of fanning strokes to create a sense of topology across, elements in the background. Then the more I look at it, the more fascinated I am by the presence of this little guy, how it reinforces, like, if we didn't have that little guy in there, we would have nothing to judge the size of this creature by. I mean, the cave could be arbitrary. It could be, this creature without a point of comparison there, that creature literally could be as big as a house or as small as a frog. And you would have no way to know.
Here's what I find fascinating about, sorry to jump in, about the cave element and the slop element that he's eating. Both of them are amorphous, globular shapes, but you get more of a solid feeling with the way the rocks are as compared to the slop the creature is eating. But they're both very similar in shape, which I find fascinating on that. And I just thought of two jokes with the tail.
Oh, God.
It has to do with stroke.
Oh, God, no.
On that. Now, one thing I'm curious is, real quick, is you've had a very good stroke of good luck, and that is called Homestead. And real quick, there's just a few days left to the Homestead comic. So if you go to Kickstarter and pledge a little bit, let's make it over the $20,000 mark.
Oh, yeah. We're how many days now? I think 6 days left on it. And yeah, like 6 days left. And I haven't checked the total this morning, but last time I checked, we were well on our way to 20K.
Yes. Okay, let's get back to tail stroking.
Tails. Oh, that's terrible. Let's see here. I'm just curious real quick.
19,300.
Yes. Yeah, 19,301 right now.
Damn, that's great.
So that's great.
Yeah.
So hopefully in the next 6 days we'll cross that 20K line. But back to the show here, folks.
Yeah.
Let's peel back out of that one and move on to now this is a much more wide open shot of Mephisto, and I believe, I'm gonna guess that this is from the I think it was X Factor versus Fantastic Four.
Oh,
back in probably about 86-ish, something like that. Let's see. So, yeah. This was. I might be wrong on the book, but I'm definitely right on the era. So this is another splash page, and given how hot and heavy Marvel was cranking out the books during this era, I'm not surprised that it's very sparse. Now, that could have been a deadline choice, or could have just been his direction on it, where he wanted to go. But if we're looking at composition, we've got some framing from the dark areas here, and he's kind of blocked it off into framing up Mephisto and then framing her up with these creatures here. So it's interesting to me that he's really created, it's almost like there's two worlds here. There's the world Mephisto sits in, and then there's the world she's in. And then by having this critter right here and these other critters, it creates that sense of violation and invasion coming in for her. So there's something kind of neat about that. But then also there's your golden mean again, or golden ratio. Boom, right there. but then he's also coming through here with it like that. So that's another thing that you can tell. That's very frequently that's going to be found in really good composition, is that golden ratio is going to be able to be seen quite likely from multiple directions. So let's see what else we got here. Yeah, I think I had a couple more splash pages, and I know you wanted to mention a little bit about inking. I want to hold on to that until we do. Okay. Maybe next time we'll do the episode dedicated on just discussing inks, because we've got about 8 minutes left.
Okay.
And I'm going to pop back over.
The fans want new stroke jokes, and also they're wondering about the stretch goal, the latest stretch goal, which is for $20,000. I think you get a magical pin or something on the Kickstarter.
Yeah, at 20K, I think we're doing these werewolf pins.
Yeah.
Like lapel pin kind of collector's pin sort of thing. Then I don't know. I know there's been talk of stuff to put on tap in the last day or two if we break 20K, but I don't know yet what it is. So, and I've been off. Of course, Charles has been manning the shop here for me, watching the folks, the viewers.
Yeah,
and that's been super handy. Thank you for that.
That's because the viewers are cool. I like the viewers.
I'm taking a quick look through to see what folks are saying over here before we have to close things out here in a couple minutes. So I've been, behind the scenes over here chugging away in Clip Studio. Yeah. Brent says the book is practically done in silver now. Yeah,
it is.
Absolutely. Yeah, I am super happy about that, because it's funny. I feel like there's a song from Johnny Cash and Glenn Danzig together called "Come to Silver." That is like, it seems like it's going to be the theme song for Homestead now. So I'm super down with that. And if no one knows it, go look it up.
Yeah.
Both versions are awesome. Johnny Cash is great, and Glenn Danzig's version is awesome. It's actually one of a handful of songs that Danzig wrote for Johnny upon meeting him. The story goes that Danzig was doing sessions with Rick Rubin, and he shows up at the studio, and Rick Rubin has Johnny Cash there because he's working with him too. And Danzig is like, dude, that's Johnny Cash. I'm going to pull you off the stage.
Oh,
and oh yeah, man, Danzig, dude, Danzig. I love me some Danzig. But yeah, apparently Danzig showed up and was all kind of like, starstruck. And Rick Rubin's like, you like Johnny Cash? And Danzig is like, of course I like Johnny Cash. I mean, who doesn't love Johnny Cash? And he's like, I mean, the way the story goes that I've heard it, God knows I wasn't there, but that basically Rick Rubin is like, you want to write a couple songs with him? And it's like, dude, when somebody asks you to sit down and write a song with Johnny Cash, and Johnny is there and in for it, of course. I mean, it's like Johnny Cash doing "Hurt" from 9 Inch Nails. I'm like, I'm sorry, Trent, it's not your song anymore.
No.
It's not your song anymore. When Johnny takes your song, you say yes, sir, and thank you. So that's how that game works.
Les?
Yeah.
With what you just did earlier, showing everything and with a tail, I would have to say it's a stroke of genius.
Oh my God. The stroke jokes. Oh my God.
Yes. As long as it's not a long stroke. Backstroke?
Man.
What is Dazing?
I'm going to start calling this the groan cast.
Yeah. What is Danzig?
Oh, you don't know Danzig. Oh my God.
Is it like a song like
Oh my God.
Dancing by Myself? Oh.
Sometimes you literally make my soul hurt. Just go type that in somewhere and go listen to the man's work.
Okay.
Glenn Danzig, founder of the Misfits, founder of Samhain, long solo career, excellence for decades. I think the man's only ever done one album that I don't like.
Oh,
and
wow.
even it has great songs on it, just the production's terrible.
Yeah.
So, yeah, anybody who's a Danzig fan, we all kind of cough when we say Black Acid Devil. There's the album Danzig 5. He numbered all of his solo albums. So Danzig 5, Black Acid Devil. He kind of went diving into trying to dive into industrial music. And the songs are great when you hear them live.
Yes.
And it's just a band with him playing, but that album, yeah, not so good.
Oh man.
So all right.
Could you imagine listening to music dead? You get an atomic battery onto a repeating MP3 player, and you just have it buried with you. So the next like 50,000 years, you can play the music.
You think of some weird shit, dude.
By the way, thank you, everyone.
Plungecast says Twist of Cain.
Twist
of Cain is an amazing song. Yeah, Danzig has been almost a soundtrack for my life from about age 16 forward. So that's a long time to be listening to Danzig. Well, thank you, folks, for hanging out. I do believe that's going to wrap us up for today.
By the way, thank you. You all were a blast. And without you, this show would not be as fun. So thank you for listening and watching and also learning, because the one advantage of Les is he is a virtuoso genius and a Renaissance dude of the modern age.
This guy says this stuff, and I'm just like, eh.
Yeah, we know.
People are going to think I'm paying him to say this shit. Oh, my God. All right, Charles. With that, you're off the stage. Bye-bye. Bye-bye, Charles. Oh, my God. All right, folks. Well, thank you very much for hanging out as we go diving into kind of the nuts and bolts of comics and comic art. That's really the nature of what this show is supposed to be. Now, sometimes I may be doing some drawing. Sometimes we may have other artists come on and hang out and do, different things like sketching together, doing some jam art, breaking down art together. There's all kinds of stuff. So, that's what it's all about. And I hope that in the course of the show, maybe we can all learn a little bit more together about comics and just love these damn things a little bit more. So thank you, folks. And until next week, I am out. Peace.
Glamorized and embraced by Hollywood, feared in the underworld, Benjamin Bugsy Siegel was one of the most powerful men in America. He was also one of the most hated. The man who gave birth to Las Vegas was gunned down in the luxurious home of his glamorous lover. Almost 80 years later, his murder remains unsolved. Who killed Bugsy?
Flip City Magazine is just really pulling out all the stops, man. Your guys' production value of this magazine has gone insane. I mean, look at that. I mean, I remember when you guys, it was black and white. Even when it was black and white, I thought your quality was great. But damn, they just really stepping it up a notch. Look at this. James Corbett, boys. James Corbett.
Genuinely cutting, but also funny, and obviously just chaotic and very fun.
I love Flip City. It has brought new types of badassery and integrity to the print medium.